Hello and welcome. This is the pre-game show. I am your host, Trellis Williams, right here, 97.7 from WRBJ The Beat of the Capital, and also on the TSJW Network YouTube channel. If you're joining us there, we really appreciate you. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Today we have a big show for you. We've got some scores from around the state. We have some rankings as district play continues to go along, as we talked about a little bit last week. Also, do want to kind of talk a little bit about last week, our interview with Coach Tony Vance from the Hattiesburg Tigers football team. We really appreciate him joining us. I know that was a very good interview, and you can go back and check that out. It's still on YouTube, on the TSJW Network YouTube channel. The full interview is there, and we really appreciate Coach Vance for joining us there. Also, we will talk about on the show, the Clarion Ledger comes out with some mid-season standout boys basketball players for the 2024-25 season. We will look at that list. I have a few problems with that list, and we will talk about those problems a little later on in the show today as well, and kind of some plans that we have for the show moving forward. But right now, this is the pregame show. We got a good one for you here today. Okay, so this past week we had a few notable games to talk about that we will talk about right now. So we had Macomb and Raymond, both 4A schools in the same district. Raymond able to easily win this ball game by 37 points, a 74-37 win over Macomb. For the Raymond Rangers. They rule in school in that 4A division, and they're looking like they're doing that right now with a 74-37 win there. Ridgeland, the number 4 team in the state, taking on Callaway. Ridgeland, the Titans get the win, 81-54 over the Callaway Chargers. Chargers having a little bit of a down year here in basketball. Callaway has a very good and rich basketball tradition, but they got handled here by the Titans. Titans having a very good year. They lose by 27 points at home. The number 12th ranked team in the state, Olive Branch, taking on Grenada. Olive Branch wins easily, 83-57, a 26-point win for Olive Branch. This is a big one, a top 10 matchup between Starkville and Tupelo. Starkville, the 3rd-ranked team in the state. Tupelo, the 8th-ranked team. Tupelo wins 53-43, a 10-point win there at home for the Golden Wave. And the thing about Tupelo is that their athletics are very impressive. Of course, as you know, they won the 7A state championship in football, and here in basketball, they're doing very well as well. A top 10 team, and they just beat a top 5 team in the Starkville Yellow Jackets there at home, 53-43 for Tupelo. Also, the number 18th team in the state, Horn Lake, beats Oxford, but beats them barely on the road, 70-66. That's a big win there. Talking about a very close battle on the road, and in district play, you want to get some good wins here. Horn Lake able to beat Oxford 70-66. St. Martin taking on Gulfport there. A little bit of action here from the coast. St. Martin falling to Gulfport, a low-scoring affair, 52-45 win for Gulfport. Then we got Biloxi and Harrison Central, some more from the coast, another close ball game, 57-54 win for the number 20th ranked team in the state. Biloxi, the Indians beat Harrison Central 57-54. Then we have Mendenhall and Morton. Morton now ranked in the top 25 for the first time of the season, I do believe. They win at home 60-45 over Mendenhall. Then we have Choctaw Central taking on Leake Central. Now, Choctaw Central ranked 21st in the state heading into this game. Leake Central was ranked 16th. Choctaw Central gets the win. No, Choctaw Central falls. They fall by 22 points to Leake Central 79-57. Now we see a little bit of MAIS action, and along the 6A classification, you see Hartfield Academy taking on Jackson Prep, and Hartfield wins 50-48. Very close ball game. Hartfield gets the win, and a lot of times you see in these MAIS games a lot of low-scoring basketball. especially once they start playing each other in district action. So we see that here, 50-48, very low scoring game, but the Hawks get the win over the Patriots, which is a big win for the Hawks. Hawks are a good team, but they had something to prove here, and they did on the road, beating Jackson Prep 50-48. Also saw Jackson Academy take on MRA. Jackson Academy looked at as one of, if not the top MAIS team. They were the state champions last year with a 35-1 record. This year they've done well thus far. They're a top 10 team, and they take on MRA here. MRA is in the top 25. They're ranked 24th. A 45-41 win for Jackson Academy over MRA. A 4-point win. 45-41 win for the Raiders. And so that kind of wraps up some of these games that we wanted to talk about from this last week. Kind of looking a little bit at what we're seeing here, from these different divisions. Of course, Germantown still looking like they are ahead here in the state. They are the number 1 ranked team in the state, according to Max Preps. They have the Mike Williams on the team, who's a very good player. Definitely hyped up, especially since his dad is the coach of Jackson State. He's going to join his dad next year on that Jackson State basketball team. And so, definitely for good reason, he's playing well as well. Germantown's number 1, Columbus sitting at number 2 with a 15-3 record. And then you have Starkville at number 3, Ridgeland at number 4, Jackson Prep at number 5, which rounds out the top 5. But kind of through this top 25, we see a lot of good teams, and a lot of these teams have been winning a lot. Most of the teams around the 3 or 4 loss category. You get down, the only undefeated team in the state, of course, still is the Muddy River Counselors at 19-0. They will head to a big district tournament in the homeschool ranks in Monroe, Louisiana, and we're going to talk about them a little bit later on. That'll be one of our big topics here. Hartfield, that was quite a win, and going into that game, they were actually ranked number 19th in the state. They jumped 6 spots after that win. But I do want to talk a little bit about Lanier. So Lanier High School is the best Jackson public school right now in basketball. 16-3 is their record. They will play Raymond tomorrow night at 7:30. That should be a big ball game, and we will talk about that a little bit. Okay. I do want to be clear. This show goes out on Saturday mornings, but since we at the TSJW Network are actually having coverage of this district tournament in Monroe Friday and Saturday, we are pre-recording this right now on Thursday. And so this game, Lanier and Raymond, has already happened at the time that you're listening to this. But 7:30 Lanier and Raymond, and just kind of telling you right now from where I see it, that should be a great ball game. A big test for Lanier, I'll tell you that much. Lanier, a 16-3 basketball team. Their 3 losses were to Clinton. One was by Clinton by 4 points, 51-47. They lost to Neshoba Central by 11, 57-46, and lost to Ridgeland by 2, 62-60. So all 3 of the teams they lost to are very good basketball teams, especially Ridgeland and Clinton. And both of those games they lost by single-digit amount of points there. This Lanier team's a very good basketball team. They have wins over Terry. They have a win over Brandon. They have a win over Raymond earlier this year. So I would expect this Lanier team to go pretty far. They are a 4A team. They are in the same region, or the same district, rather, as Raymond, as well as Richland, Macomb, and it says Wingfield here. Of course, Wingfield does not exist any longer. So you have Lanier, Raymond, Richland, and Macomb. Right now in the standings, Lanier 2-0 in district, Raymond 2-1, Richland 0-1, Macomb 0-2. And that's where we stand really when it comes to that particular district. But Lanier, a very, very good basketball team. And I take them against Raymond on Friday night. Of course, at the time of this posting, you will know the score of that ball game, and we'll talk about it more in depth next week. But Lanier, very good basketball team. We're definitely pulling for them here in the Jackson area to continue to make their rise. And so, folks, right now, at this point, we are going to step aside and take a break. When we come back, we will talk about the Clarion Ledger top boys players in the state that they held up for a vote that they put out on their newspaper. And folks, I got some problems with it. I don't really like the list very much, and I will give you the reasons why. First, we'll have a rundown in the next segment, but this is the pregame show. I'm Trellis Williams. We'll step aside. Welcome back. This is the pregame show. The pregame show. I'm Trellis Williams, your host, right here, WRBJ 97.7, the beat of the capital. And we appreciate our folks at the radio for supporting this show. It goes out Saturdays at 9 a.m., so be sure to tune in. And if not, you can watch it here on YouTube, on the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button right now. So just as I was saying before the break, Clarion Ledger coming out with a list of the top boys basketball players in the state of Mississippi. And before I get started, I do want to say congratulations to all these players on this list. And because these guys have had good seasons. And there's a reason why they are on this list. I don't have a problem with that, and I will highlight my issues as we go along. First, I want to go ahead and read the names off the list. So first on this list is Braylon Barnes out of Brandon High School. He is averaging 21.7 points, 7.1 rebounds, and 2.3 assists per game. That is Braylon Barnes from Brandon High School. Those are impressive numbers, 21.7, 7.1 rebounds. Definitely solid there from Barnes, and so he's on the list, and I see why. J.P. Baldwin from Madison Central. He signed with Navy, the Naval Academy, to play basketball there, which is congratulations to Baldwin there. He averages 17 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 2.1 steals. He is on Madison Central. And then we got Zylier Clemens. Zylier Clemens at Choctaw Central, who's been a very good team this year, and we talked about them a little earlier. Took a tough 22-point loss on Tuesday. But he is averaging 17 points with 5 rebounds and 3.5 assists for Choctaw Central. That's Zylier Clemens. Then we got Eric Dampier Jr. We've discussed him on this show before. He's a freshman. Very impressive player. He stands at 6'10" at MRA. Of course, his dad, legendary Eric Dampier, 16-year NBA career, as well as a Hall of Fame career at Mississippi State, leading the Bulldogs to the Final Four in 1996. So you're talking about some serious history around his family and his father. Very great basketball player. Eric Dampier Jr. is coming into his own as well. He averages 14.5 points with 11.5 rebounds and 1.9 blocks for MRA. But he's a freshman. Very impressive player. He is on this list. We got Demetrius Duffy out of Tupelo. He's signed with Colin, averaging 17.6 points, 11.8 rebounds, and a block for the Tupelo Golden Wave. Now, Tupelo's had a great season. They're a top 10 team in the state, and so very well deserved here for Demetrius Duffy. He competes with a very good ball club there in Tupelo. Then we got Elijah Foster. He's from Holka High School. The junior averages 15.6 points, 11.4 rebounds, and 2 steals for that ball club. That's Elijah Foster. Then we got Sam Funches from Germantown. So another good player from this Germantown team, and he's a junior. He averages 14.5 points, 8.1 rebounds, 4 blocks, and 3.1 assists. 4 blocks, that's a big number right there for Sam Funches. And then we got Caleb Gator. He's from Jackson Academy right here around this area. Gator is committed to Mississippi College here in Clinton, Mississippi, which is at my alma mater. He averages 13 points, 4.7 assists, and 3.2 steals for Gator out of Jackson Academy. Jackson Academy's had a great season thus far. They just got a 4-point win over MRA. And then we look at Demarion Gibson. Demarion Gibson out of Greenville High School, averaging just over 19 points with 3.5 assists, 2.6 rebounds, and 1.9 steals per game. He's there at Greenville High School. Now we got Marcus Goodlow out of Jackson Academy, another Raider. He averages 15.6 points, 3.2 assists, and 3.7 steals. Okay, so that's Marcus Goodlow out of Jackson Academy. Then we got Corey Guyton Jr. out of Kosciuszko. Guyton averaging 14.3 points, 4.9 rebounds, and 4.3 assists for Guyton Jr. out of Kosciuszko High School. Then we got Mike Hood of Columbus. Hood averages 14 points and 8 rebounds per game. We'll say this, Mike Hood out of Columbus. So Columbus is the number 2 team in the state, so obviously they deserve to have a player on here. They're a very good ball club, and he's averaging 14 and 8 for their team. Okay, so I'm going to try to pronounce his name here. Imajai Horton out of Lanier. The Lanier Bulldogs. Horton is averaging 15 points with 8 rebounds and 5 assists for the Bulldogs. So solid season he's had, and Lanier is a very good team, and we talked about them just a little bit earlier. Lanier 16-3 on the year there in their 4A classification. Then we got Wesley Lindsay out of Central Hines Academy, very good player. He signed with Southern Miss, and he's averaging just over 16 points and 2 rebounds for Wesley Lindsay out of Central Hines Academy. 6'6". We've seen him play in person as he, with the Central Hines Cougars, took on the Muddy River Counselors, the homeschool team. And in that ball game, we brought it right here live here on the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Then we got Ethan Long out of Hattiesburg High School, and the junior for the Tigers averages 21 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 blocks. Obviously a big fella, and those are very impressive numbers. 21, 11, and 5 blocks. Unbelievable, actually. Very good season for Ethan Long. Then we got Ashton McGee, who we've discussed on this show a little bit, transferred from MRA last year to South Jones. McGee is averaging just over 14 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 1.3 assists for South Jones. So McGee has done well down there. They are ranked 11th in the state of Mississippi. He's done a good job leading that team to success down there in the Laurel area. I believe that's Ellisville. Alejandro Montalvo from Biloxi for the Indians. 10.1 points, 2.8 assists, and 1.9 rebounds for Montalvo. And we got Phil Nelson from Ridgeland, averaging just over 20 points, 6.5 rebounds, 2.6 assists, and 2 steals. Now, Nelson plays on Ridgeland for the Titans, and I will say this about the Titans, very good team, top 5 team in the state. And so definitely belonging on this list is Phil Nelson, averaging just over 20 points for that good of a ball club. Then we got Blake Nettles from Pascagoula High School. The junior averages 13.5 points, 5.4 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 2.9 steals. Then we got Maddox Noblet from Ocean Springs. Noblet averaging 14 points with 5 rebounds and 3 assists per game for Noblet. And so then we got Jace O'Neal from Columbus, another Columbus player. O'Neal averaging 12 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists for O'Neal. And then we got Tyrese Ricardo, who actually leads the state in points per game. He's from Resurrection Catholic, which is down there on the coast. The junior averages 27.4 points, 10.8 rebounds, and 3.3 assists. 27 and 10. And that's quite a stat line there for Ricardo. Obviously deserves to be on this list. He's the number 1 scorer in the state. Then we got Kevin Roberts Jr. from Jackson Prep. I think this is a newcomer for the Patriots, and he's a big fella. Junior averages 14 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 blocks for Roberts out of Jackson Prep. Then we have Morris Robertson Jr. from Gulfport. Robertson averaging 14 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 steals for Robertson. Then from Madison Central, we have Dylan Rowe. Rowe averaging 16.5 points, 6.8 assists, which is a very big number of assists, 5 rebounds, and 3.3 steals. Definitely deserves to be on the list. Madison Central, a top team in the state. He's averaging 16.5 points, 6.8 assists, and then 5 rebounds and 3.3 steals for Rowe. Then we got Kedrick Simmons. Simmons from Boonville. He signed with Jackson State, averaging 24 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. Those are very good numbers, 24, 6, and 5. Then we got Cole Sinclair from Woodlawn Prep, just a little south of Hattiesburg there. Sinclair averaging 22.5 points, 4.8 rebounds, and 2.3 assists. So very solid on the point scoring. A lot of points there, 22.5 points for Sinclair from Woodlawn Prep. Then we got Jason Talbert from Cleveland Central. Talbert is averaging 17 points, 5.5 rebounds, and 2.6 assists for Cleveland Central. That's Jason Talbert. And then the last 5 names on this list, we got Jaden Tate from Starkville High School. Tate averaging 13.6 points, 3 rebounds, and 1.8 steals for the Starkville Yellow Jackets. Obviously, the Yellow Jackets, the top team in the state, deserve a player on the list, and they do have one in Jaden Tate. Then we got Jalen Tweedy. Tweedy averaging 23 points and 8.3 rebounds. He's from Palmer High School, and those are very good numbers. Then we got Michael Wallace from McLaurin High School right around here in Florence, Mississippi. Wallace averages 18.2 points, 7.1 assists, which is big, number 2 in the state in assists, as well as 2.6 steals per game. He's a 5'9" guard. He's a senior. He's a very good player. That is, and you're talking about on a team that is 17-3 on the season, so he definitely deserves to be on the list. Michael Wallace from McLaurin High School, averaging 18.7, 2.6 steals. Congratulations to Michael Wallace. He's had a great season thus far. Then you have Xavier Weber out of Heritage Academy. The junior averages 18.5 points, 4.4 assists, 3.9 rebounds, and just over 2 steals for Heritage Academy. That's Xavier Weber. And then finally, we have Mike Williams from Germantown. He signed with Jackson State, of course, to go play for his dad, Mo Williams. He averages 19.7 points with 4.8 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 2.5 steals for the Germantown Mavericks. And so that completes the list here. I believe that's 5. Yes, I do believe that is just about 30 players on that list for the Clarion Ledger. And so that, there's a lot of players on that list, and I want to congratulate every single one of them for their achievements on the season here. Don't want to take anything away from them whatsoever. And but I do have problems with this list as it leaves off players that obviously should be on it just based on stats and team performance. And I want to talk a little bit about that when we come back. This is the pregame show. We got a lot more for you right here. I'm Trellis Williams. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is the pregame show. I am your host, Trellis Williams, and in our last segment, we were talking a little bit about this list that the Clarion Ledger put out, listing some of the top boys players from around the state so far this season. And I did want to say this, is that this list, these players, all very good basketball players, have stood out for their schools this year, so I do want to congratulate them. Now, in this Clarion Ledger article that I am citing, what they said was that they compiled this list based off of coaches' submissions, but also based on stats that they saw on Max Preps and Scorebook Live. And this is where my problem lies, because I have looked thoroughly, obviously in my coverage of high school sports in the state. I've looked thoroughly through Max Preps. I have seen the leaderboards for each stat category, and they miss people. They are missing people, and 2 players in particular, and I will get to that in just a second. And I want to talk about some of these notable players who are not on the list, and whether I understand if they're not on the list and whether I don't. And I'm going to go through them right now. So first on my notable not on the list players is from Natchez High School, Dalen Haywood. He's a junior, 5'10", from Natchez High School. He averages 22.9 points with 1.2 rebounds, 2.4 assists, and 3.2 steals. His team is 19-7 on the season. So, and I've listed out these names, 22.9 points. That is up there in the state of Mississippi in terms of points averages. 1.2 rebounds, nothing special. 2.4 assists, that's okay. 3.2 steals is impressive as well. So just on that alone, and then 19-7 record, they are a good team, Natchez is. Dalen Haywood has an argument there, the junior out of Natchez. Then from Clarksdale High School, we've got Kamarius Rash. He's a 6'3 junior, 180 pounds. He averages just over 22 points a game, or 22.6 points per game, 2.5 rebounds, 3.1 assists, and 1.8 steals. So after the points per game, the other stats they're solid, they're decent, but his team is 8-11, so they are not having a great season there at Clarksdale High School. So I do understand why he wouldn't be on the list, just because of team performance, and then the other stats aren't eye-popping, even though the 22.6 points per game is very impressive for Kamarius Rash. Very good player. I do understand why he might have not made the list, even though I do think he should be considered. Then we got Israel Congolo. He's a junior, 6'6", 197 pounds. This is Bogalusa, Louisiana, but they are included in the MAIS and are included in the Mississippi standings here. So Congolo averages just over 21 points per game and over 16 rebounds per game. This leads the state in rebounds. 1.2 assists with 1.6 steals and just under 4 blocks a game for Israel Congolo. Great player. Now, his team is 5-12, so his team is actually a bad team. Like, they do not win very much. They're 5-12. So I can understand why he's not on the list, but I will say, obviously, a very good player. He's averaging 21 and 16. So that's a notable guy that didn't make the list. Then we got Raider Williams, a senior, 6 feet, 160 pounds, from Sacred Heart High School in Hattiesburg. Williams averages 21.4 points, 6.6 rebounds, 2.9 assists, 2.4 steals. His team's 8-8, very small school. I can understand why he doesn't make the list, at least if these guys ahead of him on this list didn't make the list, but he's a very good player there from Sacred Heart. Then we got Simeon Ballard, a teammate of Tyrese Ricardo there on Resurrection Catholic. He's a sophomore. He's 6'9", 195 pounds. He averages 10 points, 13.3 rebounds, and 4.5 blocks. But, of course, his team is 5-10. Now, Resurrection Catholic did get Tyrese Ricardo on the list, even though they're 5-10, not really having a good season as a team. But 27 points per game got Ricardo on the list, and he should be. Leads the state in points per game. And then we have Caleb Hearns from Coahoma County High School. He is a junior, 6'5", 170 pounds. He averages 12.7 points with 11.4 rebounds, 2.1 steals, 2.6 blocks. His team's 18-4, so he's got a very good team behind him as well. I do understand why he doesn't make the list, just because his stats aren't as eye-popping as the rest, but he's a very good player on a very good team. So that's Caleb Hearns. And so those are some guys that are on the list that aren't on the list that you can make arguments for them to be on the list, especially Dalen Haywood, and, especially Dalen Haywood. I mean, he's on a 19-7 team. You're talking about a good team in Natchez. 22.9 points as well as 3.2 steals. But, he didn't make the list. Okay, so you can understand that. Now we get to two players that I just don't know how in the world that you can keep them off the list. But unfortunately, I think I know why. And so that, of course, is Son Michael Williams and Caleb Sanders, both teammates on the same team, which is the Muddy River Counselors, which is the homeschool team in the Jackson area. Now, let me go through their stats, okay? You're talking about two guys that lead the state in two different categories. Son Michael Williams leads the state in assists. And not only does he lead the state, he leads it by 1.6 assists. He averages 8.7 assists a game, leading the state, while also averaging 20.1 points a game. So just over 20 points a game, 8.9 rebounds per game, 8.7 assists per game, 4.5 steals per game, and then just over a block per game on a team that is 19-0. You're talking about the only undefeated team in the state of Mississippi is the Muddy River Counselors. Now let's talk about his teammate Caleb Sanders, who, of course, his full name is David Sanders Jr. He is the son of David Sanders, the head coach at Clarion Community College, coached a good few years, I believe it was 7 years, at Callaway High School, where he won a championship in 2020. Coach Malik Newman, Coach Deshaun Ruffin there at Callaway. Very good coach. Now is the coach at Clarion. His son is Caleb Sanders, just to clarify who this is. Caleb is a junior as well as Michael is a junior as well. Caleb averages just over 20 points a game, with 8.2 rebounds, 5.6 assists, 5.2 steals, in which he leads the state. He leads the state in steals, Caleb Sanders does, with 5.2, and then he averages 0.8 blocks on a 19-0 team. Now, this obviously always brings up the question. This is the Muddy River Counselors homeschool basketball team. So, why do you think that these guys aren't on the list? Because according to the Clarion Ledger, they say that they look through Max Preps for these stats. Well, it'd be easy to find these guys if you look at the leaderboards on Max Preps. If you look at the leaderboards in the state of Mississippi, what you're going to find is that top assists guy in the state is Michael Williams, 8.7 assists. Number 2 is Michael Wallace, who is on the list from McLaurin High School. He averages 7.1 assists, 18.2 points. He's on a 17-3 basketball team. And so, McLaurin, I do believe, is 3A. But I say Michael Wallace definitely deserves a spot on the list. Now, he is from a smaller school, so I think he probably was on the edge of that list. But he's obviously a very good player, and he is on this list. So Michael Williams averages 1.6 more assists than he does, as well as 2 more points than he does, and higher rebounds, higher steals, and all the like. Caleb Sanders averages 5.2 steals with 20 points a game as well, 8.2 rebounds, and again, a 19-0 basketball team. The only undefeated team in the state. So why are these guys not on the list? I think it's pretty obvious. Homeschool basketball just gets overlooked here in the state of Mississippi. And the thing is that you can understand it in a certain way, especially a few years ago, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, where you're like, okay, what competition are you playing? Homeschool basketball, there aren't that many homeschoolers out there, so you aren't going to have that many to pick from in terms of competition and things like that. Well, see, that has changed in a large way here, especially in Mississippi. Mississippi has some of the best homeschool basketball just because of options. Mississippi's a big homeschooling state. So, of course, the counselors are in a conference with 10 teams in it that they play against, but they also play non-conference games, and they play non-conference games against schools. One of the teams that the counselors played against was one of the players on this list in Wesley Lindsay. Wesley Lindsay from Central Hines Academy signed with Southern Miss, averaging just over 16 points and 2 rebounds. Now, Wesley Lindsay knows how good the counselors are. He knows how good Michael Williams and Caleb Sanders are. Caleb Sanders shut that game down there at the end. Williams finished with 25 points. Caleb Sanders finished with a triple-double and 16 points. These two guys have a lot to – these guys are the top players on the counselors, of course, but these guys are some of the top players in the state. I don't think there's any way around it. There's no part of this setup that would keep these guys out. There's no stat line that they haven't achieved. They've won every game that's gone in front of them. And then in their homeschool ranks, whenever they play a team that might not be as good a competition, they beat them by 40 or 50 points, scoring over 100 points 3 times this season, the counselors have. And then in the state of Mississippi, according to Max Preps, they're ranked 25th in the state. So there really is no reason why they would not be on the list here. And so just from my point of view, and I was looking at this list, And when I was looking at it, I thought that they might just put maybe 5 players on that list or something like that. And if they put 5 players on the list, didn't include those guys, it's like, look, I understand you're overlooking a lot of guys. Man, look, all throughout the state, we've got great basketball players in this state. So I understand that. You put a list together of like 30 players where if you look at the leaderboards on Max Preps, they hit a lot of the leaders. They touch on a lot of the leaders here in the state of Mississippi according to stats. And you're talking about mostly big schools. The small schools get overlooked in a lot of ways. I understand that. But you have some small school representation as well. The only misrepresentation or lack of representation comes from the homeschool ranks, and you're not just talking about an average homeschool team. You're talking about a team that is 19-0 and has played non-conference games in which they've won. They played Central Hines Academy, is a very good team with a Southern Miss commit on their team, as well as being coached by James Crane, who's the second winningest coach in the history of the state, as far as basketball is concerned. So what you're saying here is that just because they're homeschooled means that they can't have players on the list. I beg to differ. I just beg to differ right here. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit as far as this show is concerned, because I know it's not just homeschool athletes that get overlooked. It's also athletes from small schools. I looked at the comment section on a Facebook post that was promoting this Clarion Ledger article, saw a bunch of names in there where people were like, okay, what about this person? And I you can't just take that as a source of, oh, this person should have been on the list because their mother said they should be on the list. Not saying that at all. But I did look into some of these guys' stats, and when you look at their stats, listen, they're good players on good teams. So one thing that I want to do moving forward right here with this pregame show is I kind of want to highlight some of these players from these smaller schools that they can really play. And just because they go to a smaller school or they decide to homeschool does not mean that they can't play basketball. You mean to tell me that Caleb Sanders, the son of David Sanders, who coaches there at Colin, who signed one of these players to his school, you think that his son, just because he's homeschooled, he can't be on one of these lists, even though he's averaging 28, 6, 5, leading the state in steals on a 19-0 team. And now, listen, I'm not saying, so right now at this point in time in the season, the Counselors are undefeated, 19-0. This is basketball. I don't foresee them being undefeated throughout the season. I mean, it's basketball. And they're going to run into some really tough competition here coming up shortly. But at this moment in the season, 19-0, and then with these stat lines, with these guys, I don't see why they would not even be on the list of nominations here for the top players in the state of Mississippi. There's really no argument around it. I want to hear what you think, audience. If you're listening on the radio, go ahead and send an email in, tsjwnetwork@gmail.com. Send an email in, tsjwnetwork@gmail.com. Also, give us some leads for some players that are really, really good players, because some people's coaches don't post their stats on Max Preps. I understand that as well. So, hey, look, let me know, and we'll look into it, because that's what we want to do here on the pregame show. We want to allow more players to be able to see a little bit, have some people be able to know what you're doing over there, because a lot of these guys, a lot of these great players in the state put in a lot of hard work, and I know from seeing some Michael Williams and Caleb Sanders up close, they put in a lot of work, and they're doing about as good as you can do. I mean, how much better can you do than be undefeated and putting stats up like this? And not to mention they play on the same team. You have to share the ball. You have 2 guys averaging 20 points a game. Come on. I'm just saying that's a lot of work goes into that, and I think it should be spotlighted. And I want to do that here for the pregame show. So moving forward, we're going to talk about high school sports throughout the state. We're going to highlight the teams around this Jackson area, like Lanier High School, for instance. They are a very good basketball team. But we're also going to highlight some of the smaller schools around this state. Some smaller schools that are doing well. If they're not doing well, we're not going to talk about them, because that's what we talk about. We want to talk about the teams that are really putting together very good seasons, and we're going to try to spotlight that right here on the pregame show. So if you are with us on YouTube, drop a comment and let us know what you think about our commentary here today on this Clarion Ledger list. And I really do call on Clarion Ledger to do a little bit more due diligence, do a little bit more research, look more into, look a little deeper than just, oh, this guy signed with this college, or they're committed to this college, or who are people talking about on Twitter or whatever. I would say actually look under the hood a little bit at what's going on in the state of Mississippi. I think you'll find a lot of talent that we have in this state that's just being covered up. And also, listen, homeschool basketball is coming around. Homeschoolers are now representing nearly 15% of the population now of students. So you're going to have some good homeschool sports now. It's just straight up. You're going to have really good homeschool sports once you have that many homeschool students. It's a new day. Don't overlook players just because they're homeschooled, especially if they're dropping stats like this and they're 19-0. Look, if the homeschooler is 4-15, don't put them on the list because their team's terrible. But 19-0, including wins over teams like Central Hines, who's a very good team, with a player that's on your list, I think that should get these guys on the list alone with these stats. But that is my opinion, and this is the pregame show. We appreciate you joining us right here from WRBJ 97.7, the beat of the capital, as well as the TSJW Network. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're joining us on YouTube. And until next week, we out.